foreign policy. Trump will be asked to again denounce white supremacy, and he will be told that the Hunter Biden emails are unverified.
So pretty much everything I read on Twitter today.
I want everything on the record. Every bit. It's
all those things are going to happen.
And then some.
Are you taking the overs or the unders for Iran, China, and Russia?
Well, Trump can do that in one segment.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd rather
get back here.
I'd rather do driver's idea of take a drink every time he says Hunter Biden.
It's good to see him.
See you, John.
Enjoy. If you guys are still on around fucking midnight when I'm off, maybe I'll hop back on for a breakdown. But holy shit, this is gonna be fun, gentlemen. Enjoy.
Yep.
Enjoy.
Take her easy.
Oh, I sure hell hope not. Oh, that's probably not happening. I have to be there at a certain time, so which just sucks having responsibilities and whatnot.
Yeah.
How's work for you, Mitch? Is your boss still a dumbass?
Oh,
Your manager?
No, the one man. I have one. There's one manager on the one I used to always just talk shit about.
Yeah.
For rightfully, he's on medical leave. Oh, here it is. Are we live, Ryan? No. Oh, we are. Okay. Cool. All right.
I have no audio coming through on my end.
Not for me. I'm muting myself at times here, because otherwise Mitch is going to come through twice.
Why are we
There
on?
they are.
What'd you ask? Why are we on C-SPAN?
And I do want to say a very good evening to
instead?
both of you. This debate will cover 6
It's
major
fine.
topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus.
She
President
leaked
Trump, the first question
questions
is
to the
for
Hillary
you.
campaign,
The
so
country is heading into a
she
dangerous
obviously
new
leaked to
phase.
Biden.
More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators, we're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away. Okay,
former Vice President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially, anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wear these masks,
fucking
the
ridiculous.
President's own advisors have told them,
So
we could
fucking
save
ridiculous.
100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan, no comprehensive plan.
But they
I
asked
would
what
do
you're
is
going to do
make
about
sure
it.
we
He's not.
have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
How?
President
That's
Trump,
the
I'd
question.
like
plan.
to follow up.
Right, that was the question. How are you going to do it? And I hate how he just throws this shit out there, and it's just completely false. And she's not even going to.
Yeah, well, he's not going to say that the vast majority of those 220,000 people dead or 250,000 people dead are over 70 years of age and have underlying conditions and are in long-term care facilities.
It just seems like it could be any number. It's like, look at this number. This number is so bad. That's why Trump can't be president.
Exactly.
Trump said best case scenario, like even if we do it perfectly, it's going to be 240 was the predictions.
Yep.
And granted, everything else they've said so far has been super like high numbers, like the 2 million or whatever it was. So take that at a grain of salt. But still, like that's what I hate. And Trump didn't exactly give a plan besides talking about a vaccine. But you know, it wasn't just he didn't just start off with Trump didn't do this, Trump didn't do this. It's just like tell us what you're gonna do. That's the point of being muted.
And he's pro shutdown, so I mean, yeah.
He didn't answer the
Biden
question.
No.
Biden's pro shutdown. Yeah.
I think that Trump. I mean, he's just explaining what he's been doing. That is his plan. This is what we've been doing. That we're gonna roll out a vaccine. Like we've been making all this. Like we've been handling it. The number was supposed to be 2 point whatever million. We're down to 200,000. Like people are gonna die, but that's what I'm saying with Joe Biden. No matter what, there's gonna be a number.
And that's not like productive. You can go ahead.
Not at all.
You and your comments, you talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, and because this is new information, you have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
Oh my
No,
God.
I think my timeline's
Fuck
going to be
that.
more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular, that's the head of logistics. And this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine. And we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter. And he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no
I don't think we're
plan.
going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now, but it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you know, was his chief of staff, said it was catastrophic, it was horrible, we didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened? We started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about, don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your reaction?
I say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement.
He's
People
getting
can't
turned
do
up.
that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that. And Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families, every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, this is dangerous. And you catch it. And, I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals. And now I recovered. 99.9% of young people recover. 99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation, or you're not going to have a nation.
And of course, the CDC has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy.
That's bullshit.
Can I respond to that?
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it.
Insane.
People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch their, out of habit, where their wife or husband was, is gone. Learning
That's
to live
ridiculous.
with it. Come on. We're dying with it because he's never said, you said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I
very quickly.
take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that it came here either. It's China's fault. They kept it from going into the rest of China for the most part, but they didn't keep it from coming out to the world, including Europe and ourselves.
Vice
Benny?
President Biden.
The fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry. It's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry. The warm weather. Don't worry. Maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that, but a lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range of things the president has said. Even today, he thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
Bullshit.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said, this is a terrible thing. You're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even.
They smile, but
because
it's
I was
true.
closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. Just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You
I didn't
certainly
say
did.
school
You
words,
certainly
and I
did.
did. I talked about a xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to handling
He thought
this.
I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
That's obvious.
Do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President
No.
Biden? Okay.
Ooh.
Let's talk about your different
What?
strategies for dealing with this. Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going
That's
to
a good
shut
question.
down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people
That's
have
so
lost their
fucking
living,
ridiculous.
and why they're concerned. Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap in a golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Well, no, I'm not shutting down the name, but there are, look, you need standards. The standard is if you have a reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up, more social distancing, do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums, do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools. Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President Trump,
I think we have to respond, if I might.
please, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight, and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All he talks about is shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people, I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person and insist they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston became the latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small, but I want to open the schools. We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it often. The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. And that's what's happening. And he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Simply not true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely open, but when they need resources to open. You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can
Plexiglass
take
dividers in restaurants
rapidly
mandated.
and know whether a person
Are you
is
fucking kidding
in fact
me?
infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
By the way, I will say this. If you go and look at what's happened to New York,
it's like 1/3 of 1%.
It's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money. Putting up plexiglass is unbelievably expensive, and it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You just can't. Take a look at New York and what's happened to
fantastic
my
point.
wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look at what New York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states.
South Dakota.
They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
when
about...
you say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania, where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to
South
do
Dakota,
anything.
come on.
It's been like a prison.
Hit him with the
It was just
haymaker.
ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes, and they've been closed. And they're getting killed financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes problems. And we will protect them. We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow up with you before we move on to our next section. President Trump, this week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to as you fight this?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony. But he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem.
He did.
I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said this is not going to be a problem. We are not going to have a problem at all. When Joe says that, I said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from, what it was. We've learned a lot. But Anthony said, don't wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words, here's his exact words. This is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us. Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then we're going to move on.
The Wall Street one, I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it. You have raised a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money. And every time you raise money, deals are made, Joe. I could raise so much more money. As president and as somebody that knows most of those people, I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America. I would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position.
Gary, your hair
and then
looks
you bring
good,
up
don't
Wall
worry.
Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able to.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on.
Don't tell me about Wall Street.
Average contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election.
Here we go.
Both countries have
Here we
obtained
go.
U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's talking to them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this,
So
folks.
it's bad because he
we are in a
didn't talk to
situation
Russia.
where we have foreign
Trump has to bring up the
countries
Ukrainians.
trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian.
Here we go.
That is not true.
Trump's reloading.
And then what happens? Nothing happens.
He's
and then
fucking
you find out that
reloading.
everything that's going on
It's gonna
here
get brought up.
about Russia is wanting
It's
to make
gonna get
sure
brought
that
up.
I do
Blowing
not
hookers,
get elected
baby.
the next president of the United
Hunter's
States
laptop.
because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan.
Another
when he's
shit-
engaged
another
in
bullshit
activities
story.
that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question, why isn't that being done?
You're not coming
Any
through,
country that
Gary.
interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, let me respond to the first part, as Joe answered. Joe got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came through Putin because
His
he was very
face.
friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife, and you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million, and you know, someday you're going to have to explain why did you get 3.5. I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that, and through John Ratcliffe, who is fantastic, DNI, he said the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, you know, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well. During your term, during you and Barack Obama, they took over a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them, but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening, and it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people. Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family, but what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
Vice President Biden, you may respond.
Okay,
And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president
That's the most
paid 50
idiotic
times the
statement
tax
ever.
in China.
Jesus.
Has a bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president, I have released all of my tax returns, 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot. Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road to a new a golf course you have overseas. So what's going on here? Why don't release your tax return or stop talking about corruption?
President Trump, your response.
First of all, I called my accountants.
Can you guys hear me now?
Under audit. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it, and it'll show how successful, how great this company is. But much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, what did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years. Tens of millions of dollars I prepaid because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell
told
when
you that.
released
Excuse
them?
me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia. You made $3.5 million,
acting like
Joe,
he's getting
and your
caught.
son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10%
It's so corrupt.
to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know. Maybe you're not, but you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions
I have
about
to
all of this,
respond to
but
that.
I'm going to let you
please.
both respond very quickly.
Can you
just
pause,
said
Ryan?
you spoke to your accountant
Yes.
about potentially releasing your.
So you guys can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what's wrong with my other headphones. What is Trump waiting for? Why is he pulling his punches? Thank you. Why is he pulling his punches? Like he has it set up to ask about his son's investments and the quid pro quo that he offered Ukraine and stuff that's coming from those emails. Like, is he
There's more
saving
he could
it
do.
or what?
I mean, there is more that he could say, but he's bringing it
How
up
long
at
is
least.
the debate?
Probably 2 hours. Hour and a half.
Like,
I think it's an hour.
2 hours. We're only 30 minutes into it. You know, could be
Yeah.
rope to open them.
also, why is Biden looking like this is new information every time Trump says something?
Right, he's just like, oh, did
Like-
he just say that?
Wait, what?
He-
I got
I-
what? I got
I think-
what?
I think Trump's eventually building up, so
Huh?
he's going to talk about the Biden family's connections to Burisma, and that's going to be
I mean,
the haymaker.
I do suppose that if he just like continues to hammer it, it's gonna be less effective. And if he saves up and builds up to it, then he, can try and drop the bomb. Yeah, it's interesting. Like
But if
that
he,
whole Corona mess. Like,
oh my god, yeah.
Some of the shit Biden was saying is just so ridiculous. He didn't even bring up, what percentage
it-
of the people are. in long-term care
Kind of
facilities and
weird
whatnot.
to see.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Spenny.
I was
Go
gonna say,
ahead.
it's kind of weird to see Trump be a little bit more technical today. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just delayed.
Go Magic. Testing 1 2. Go Magic.
Perfect.
You're good. You're good.
Oh, whatever. Someone else talk.
Yeah, you just
Oh.
must not have a decent internet connection or cell
Yeah, I was saying,
connection.
it's weird to see Trump be a little bit more technical today.
Definitely.
No, I don't. I live in the fucking boondocks. There's no internet connection, so I'll just listen.
I mean,
No,
you're
you're
right,
right.
and I think maybe he learned from the last one. He saw the criticism, and
Yeah.
maybe Joe Biden's expecting the same thing, so he's coming across. And maybe the mute function is actually in Trump's favor here because now he can collect his thoughts instead of just spitting words out.
Well, and then
Exact-
Biden can throw the whole thing off too. It's not just Trump. So
Yep.
this is working
And I
out.
think exactly. And going off of what you guys said, it's if the mute aspect of it is working, then it forces us to listen to what Trump is saying when he's not, interrupting and whatnot. Forces us to listen to the substance of his words and his syntax. And then we can also at the same time look at the paralanguage of Biden when Trump says something damning and true about him. So I think that definitely plays in Trump's favor, no doubt.
You're exactly right. And I mean, if Biden can think well on his feet, which who knows how capable he is of that, like he can turn around and do the same thing. I mean, I was very critical of the mute button at first, but like now we're actually kind of getting some substance. And I mean, it's a little more decorum this time. And I think that, right now I believe it's playing in Trump's favor and Biden's the one on his heels.
Yeah,
agree.
for sure.
Your taxes, did he tell you when you can release them? Do you
As
have
soon
a
as the audit is
deadline for
finished,
when you're going to release them
I
to the
get
American
treated
people?
worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because
you
I have a
don't
lot
have
of
a time.
people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes.
Okay.
I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance to talk about this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to release your taxes. Nobody knows it, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on, folks.
Very quickly, President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions.
Come on, folks.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. $48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent $1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong. Because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your family has taken. I mean, your brother made money in Iraq, millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal.
Here's what the deal.
Ukraine, we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of a Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing, number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money
Look at Trump's
in
face.
terms of this thing about,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? China. I have not had, the only guy made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
Real solid
President Trump,
answers.
Yeah,
let
that's
me put my
ridiculous.
question to you.
Quit pointing
Could I
the
just one
finger,
thing?
Biden.
Very quickly.
His son
Yeah. So,
didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this. $183,000,
That's a little bit.
and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy.
I'm going to let the vice president
That's
respond to that quickly, and then
100%
I need to get to a
dishonest.
question to you. Very
No
quickly.
basis
Right.
for that.
Why are we
Everybody
cutting out?
investigated
He
that.
cuts
No
him
one
off.
said anything he did was
Why?
wrong in
I'm sure.
Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money every
President Trump,
place
thank
he
you.
goes.
We do need
Not
to
true.
move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. Of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make
Good
China
question.
do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of
Ryan,
China
you
to
have
go
a
up,
visitor.
not down, with China, up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25% of the world's economy.
Being
We
diplomatic,
need to be
that's
having
bad.
the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it, and that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to
Yes.
respond to that.
Okay, very quickly, and then we're
Son
going to move
walked
on
out
to
with
North
$1.5 billion
Korea.
from China to
Not
manage after
true.
spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China policy, though, what
No, but wait a
specifically are
minute.
you going to do? What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You've said you're going
First
to
of
make
all,
them pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave
New
$28 billion.
sanctions? New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers. because
Taxpayers'
China,
money.
It's what?
taxpayers' money.
Okay.
Didn't
No,
come
no,
from
yeah,
China.
you know the taxpayers.
You can't cut
it's
them
called
off.
China. China paid
Now they
let them
28
cut 'em
billion,
off.
and you know what they
Isn't
did to
he
pay
muted?
it, Joe?
Why
They
isn't Biden
devalued
muted?
their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
Okay.
And now we have a steel
Okay,
industry.
Vice President Biden, your response, please.
My response is, look, this isn't
2
about
verse 1.
There's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it.
He
doesn't
fucking
want to
said
talk about
malarkey.
the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making less than, if you're a
of
middle-class
Democratic
family,
policies.
you're getting
Yes.
hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table
Because
this
of high
morning deciding,
taxes.
well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making. And the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont, they're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want
That is a
to talk
typical
about
statement.
North Korea.
Excuse me, just
I do
for
want
1
to turn
second,
to
please.
10 seconds, Mr. President.
That's
10
a
seconds.
typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not
North
a typical
Korea now.
politician.
Okay,
That's why I
President
got elected.
Let's
get off the subject of China. Let's talk around sitting around the table.
All right.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test. And yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship, and there's no war. And you know, about 2 months ago, he broke into a certain area. They said, oh, there's going to be trouble. I said, no, they're not, because he's not going to do that. And I was right. Look, instead of being in a war where millions of people, Seoul, you know, is 25 miles away, millions and millions, 32 million people in Seoul, millions of people would be dead right now.
President
We
Trump,
don't have
that's
a war,
30
and I have a
seconds.
good
Thank
relationship.
you. Vice President Biden, to you, North Korea conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent
Because they
threat?
hated
Because I'd
Obama.
make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear, and as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, "Why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea?" I said, because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy, who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off, and they have much more capable missiles,
go and insult
able to reach
the leader of
U.S.
North Korea
territory
on
much
live
more
TV.
easily than ever
That's
did
smart.
before.
Let me follow up with you,
Yeah.
Vice President Biden. You've said you wouldn't meet with
idiot.
Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get the Korean Peninsula should be nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to
Not gonna happen. That's
American
impossible.
families.
You can't
They tried
do
to
that.
meet
Quickly,
with
10
him.
seconds,
They
President.
tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay, I gotta give him a
They
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know,
that's okay. You know what?
What?
North Korea, we're
Trump's
not in a
gotten zero
war.
chance to
We have a
respond.
good relationship. You know, people don't understand. Having a good
President
relationship
Trump,
with
we have
leaders
to
of
move
other
on because
countries
we have
is
a lot
a
of
good thing.
we have a lot of questions to get
Yes,
to.
not
That's
Your
bad.
like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe, the rest of Europe. Come on.
Oh,
What?
God.
The
Brought up
reason
Hitler.
he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to
went there.
legitimize you, and we're going to continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you. That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
And it
let's
didn't
move
happen.
on. Let's
Excuse
move on
me.
and talk about
He left
American
me
families.
a mess, Kristen.
President Trump. Okay, we do
They
need to move
left
on.
me a mess. North Korea was a mess.
We
And
need
in fact,
to
if
move
you
on so that
remember
we
the
can
first
get to
2
all
or
of
3
our
months,
questions tonight,
there was a
President
very
Trump.
dangerous period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked things out a little bit.
Okay.
There was a they left us a mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest problem he thought that our country had.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of the issues that's most important to them is health care, as you both know.
Recap this, Ryan?
Today, there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and health care is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it, and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful health care. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time, and I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But come up with a better health care, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care. Far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families. Under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine, he won't even have a choice, they want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care, and we're going to do even better.
Okay, Vice President Biden, yes, this is for you. Your health care plan calls for building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option. It'll become Biden care. The public option is an option that says that if you, in fact, do not have the wherewithal to be, if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies.
That's a terrible idea.
The idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why I didn't. Not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else.
What the fuck?
We're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None. Zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting since 17, 18, 19, and 20. The fact, I still
What have you done in 50 years?
I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions. And all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to something that President Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting socialized medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government? What's your response to
it's
them?
ridiculous. It's like saying that, we're the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think health care is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable health care. And I am very proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the
government
major
out of it,
labor
it's
unions,
unaffordable.
as well as a whole range of other people who, in fact, are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to give some people an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance your company's gone under? We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
President Trump,
Excuse me, he was
your
there
response.
for 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice president, I mean, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even more. Bernie Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like you went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination, where he got very lucky to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania and he says, oh, we're going to have fracking.
Even Biden's
and
laughing.
you never asked that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way.
But somebody should ask the question.
You can ask
he goes for a year. There will be
We
fracking.
have a number of topics we're
No,
going to
but
get
that's
to.
a big question.
We're going to get to
50 seconds.
It's the same thing with socialized
I
medicine.
have to respond.
Vice President, your response, please.
My response is people
You got a minute.
deserve to have affordable health care, period. Period, period, period. And the Biden care proposal will, in fact, provide for that affordable health care, lower premiums. What we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing, and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on health care. Not a thing.
Tristan, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine. And when he and healthcare. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare, totally destroyed, and destroying your Social Security. And this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay,
let's let Vice President Biden respond. It doesn't
Vice
work.
President
He's
Biden,
a very
your
confused
response.
guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against. And the idea that we're in a situation that they're going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023 with no way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare? Come on.
He tried to get
10
rid of
seconds,
He
Mr.
tried to hurt
President, and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
ago. Years ago. Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All
One
right,
thing,
let's move
but
on.
this
I'm
is
going to
the
move
guy
on.
that when they announced
Mr. President, I have to
last
move
week,
on to the next question.
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
going to
will
have time
boom
to talk about it.
if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's
By the
move
way,
on to the
analysts are
next
saying
question
Let me respond.
very quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is booming is his only measure of what's happening. Where I come from in Scranton and Claymont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more dollars. $700 billion more dollars, because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. We're going to move on,
401ks are through the roof.
We're going to move on.
Stock are through the roof.
All right.
And he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short period of time before he even knew it.
We're going to move on to
and
the
he
next
left.
question.
And the people of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work. And as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House, because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President.
You know, the Republican leader in the United States Senate.
So, what? Oh, this is such a shit show. So I get it. Like, Nancy Pelosi not wanting to pass it because people don't want to get a stimulus check with Donald Trump's name on it for $1,200 a day before the election, because obviously that makes that look good and people don't understand. But like, is she like asking, like, you're the president, like, does she want Trump to sign an executive order for a stimulus bill? Because I don't think that would go down well in history.
Well, and it's just setting the tone for whoever's president. They just need to rule with the pen and just enact everything rather than upholding our political process. Exactly. Like, it keeps getting stuck in Congress, right? In the House. Yep. Because I thought it went through the Senate already, and so, and I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that they're trying to like keep all the poison pills out and the personal interests out, and like that's where it's getting hung up on.
That's going to be tough.
Well, it's impossible. I mean, Republicans are just as bad as Democrats when it comes to putting my company gets this money or whatever, my stocks are going to get this to survive. Like, I get that, but like you're the president, that's just like sticking with me. Like, what is he supposed to do? He's following the process, and you can't sign an executive order for $3 billion. Like,
yeah, he can't keep out all of the special interests, the lobbying, the handouts, the bailouts, because
he probably has to.
Both parties in both houses of Congress want special interest money in these stimulus packages, even though the majority of Americans think it should just go to Americans, citizens.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and like Trump has some interest, like his business, his hotel business, like obviously this and that industry is going to get some sort of a relief and maybe not bailed out because it's so like private, but like if hotels get helped, he gets helped. So he has some interest in it too. And I agree that there's no way you can get all special interest out of it, but why is it hung up in in the House? Like, what's holding it up from them passing? Like, it's not unless the Republicans are just filling it with like their special interests, which I would 100%, believe. Like, why is this where is it because they don't want it to come out to help in the elections or what?
I think it's purely optics, because I think the number that Pelosi was asking for was even higher than the one that's getting held up.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean, I'll take it.
We're getting like a lower amount of money than what they really want to do, but for some reason it's getting held up, and I think it's just optics.
Why not just do the 1,200 again? Like, Did that not work before?
Well, like you said,
obviously, people are
everybody
surviving.
gets a check with Trump's name on it. Trump
Yeah.
can buy people's votes that way, you could say.
I mean, I don't need it, but I would take it.
For sure. Spenny, you want to chime in?
Is he gone?
He's out.
He's not here.
He's not even in here.
So I don't know, Mitch. What do you think so far? How did you feel about the foreign policy arguments with North Korea?
So idiotic. Just Trump trying to take the. Trump did the. I thought Trump came out on top. He's like, we should be diplomatic with them, and they have nuclear weapons. So, admittedly, we can't control them. Not that collectively we would want to, aside from like disarmament. I'm sure the military-industrial complex would love to, but they're just essentially a rogue kingdom, and the best thing to do is to make sure that you're on good terms with them so they don't start popping off. But again, it's self-preservationism. Kim Jong-un he loves power. He doesn't want to give it up. And he knows that if he fires a single missile into South Korea, it's going to be Armageddon. And I wish Trump would have brought up the self-preservationist aspect when asked about like the nuclear weapons and the intercontinental ballistic missiles. But Biden didn't really give much of an answer when asked about the nuclear testing that North Korea was doing during the Obama administration. He kind of almost sounded hawkish.
I don't think Biden actually had. I mean, granted, most vice presidents don't do anything, but I thought that Biden really didn't have anything to do with North Korea. It was all Barack Obama, and obviously he's probably keyed in on the information, but like I don't know if you can actually hold Biden responsible for like the testings and the relationship, because pretty sure it was Barry O that was messing everything up. And you're absolutely right. If North Korea even thinks about actually pressing the button, like numerous countries will turn them into a parking lot really quick. That's all the deferment they need, I feel.
Yep, and that was the foreign policy. One of the biggest foreign policy stains of the Obama administration was that they didn't really pick up the phone when North Korea called. They pretty much refused to be diplomatic with them in every regard. And that is not the way to go. And Biden's still kind of clinging on to that. So
yeah. Ryan, what are your thoughts on it?
What, North Korea?
Yeah, and how they handled the question.
I mean, I think Trump nailed it. I couldn't agree more. I think that Biden and his tactics like that, like I was just like, what the fuck? What are you doing right now, man? Like, do you really just go and say, this guy's got nukes. He's just a big thug. He's a dumbass. Like, just slinging mud. And then what? Biden gets elected, and then he butts heads with a nuclear power. It's not Trump's fault they have nuclear weapons. That was inevitable. They were already working on it, like we're talking about. It's so then how do you handle that situation? Well, you become friends.
Yeah, or at least have a good relationship with them. You don't even have to be friends,
but be friendly. Call them.
They got a bromance. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's not like you're threatening one of the most powerful people in the world.
You basically got to do what Dennis Rodman did.
One other thing that kind of bugged me was like when Biden was going after him for like ruining Social Security. Like, Social Security has been failing since before any of us were born. Like, how is Trump responsible? How even like 8 years of Obama, or 8 years, but how are any of them? None of them have personally, under their administrations, ruined Social Security. It's been a failed system from the start. As soon as they started borrowing from it, like at first, sure, it's a good premise, but then once you start borrowing from it, you'll never be able to pay it back. Like, no president is responsible for it. It's a long list of cumulative presidents that
I think
responsible
Gary,
for that.
That Trump is just on the tail end of it. He's the captain who's kind of going down with the ship if he gets in office for another 4 years, because with each passing year, it becomes more and more insolvent, and it gets closer to running dry. And Biden's kind of smart to capitalize on that, even if Trump himself obviously isn't responsible for running Social Security dry. I mean, that's kind of an idiotic statement. But
do you actually think it'll be run like done in 4 years? Because haven't we been hearing that for
no.
15 years?
No. It's not going to be done in 4 years, but it's going to get closer to that doomsday point where it's just completely
you think we're that close to the doomsday point? You think we're within 4 years of doomsday?
No, not within 4 years.
That's why I'm just curious.
No, I know, but it's getting closer. If he gets into office,
okay,
like that's what I'm saying is like by the end of I think 2030, like 2026, 2028, somewhere around there. Obviously after Trump's in office, like if a presidential debate comes up in 2028, they're going to look back and just blame, the previous red administrations for, having run it dry. And both parties will play this blame game, and it's kind of fucking annoying. But I agree that Biden's statements that he's running Social Security dry are just fucking ridiculous and unsubstantiated.
Yeah. So you're saying when Don Jr. is in his second debate and for his second presidency, they'll keep blaming him.
You're goddamn right, Gary.
I don't know. Like I get exactly what you're saying now. Thanks for clarifying on that. And it's just you're absolutely right. Like
did my shit go out? Oh.
No, I think it was mine.
Oh, yeah, you froze there.
But yeah, I don't know if you heard that, but yeah, each president's gonna keep getting. Am I good? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, what I was saying is each president, for the next 10, 15, however long, 5 years, is going to be, burning it down. And then one president, blue or red, it's going to finally like blow up and be, D-Day for that. And that's who's going to overall wear the blame on it.
For sure.
Well, it's like
Ryan, do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, Trump said he inherited a mess because the can's just been getting kicked down the road, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody's had to address it. And there's always just going to be shit, because that's one of those big fucking messes that you can't touch.
Yeah, it'll never get fixed. It'll run dry or just become so incompetent that it doesn't work anymore, and well, and it's on to the next socialist policy.
Right, and when Biden's talking about shit with like Medicare and how he says having a public option isn't socialist, right?
Which is completely paradoxical.
Yeah. And then what's happened is with that, it's all been partnerships with the insurance companies, which has raised rates big time because there's guaranteed government money.
Mm-hmm.
Which then
big insurance companies too.
Which just kills the private sector.
Yep.
So you're not just trying to slash the private and then have it be only a public, but that's just going to be a consequence.
And it goes back to the Cruz-Sanders healthcare town hall that I think CNN had a while back or a few years ago, where Cruz brought up probably one of the most damaging points to Obamacare. The major insurance companies lobbied for Obamacare, and then after Obamacare was implemented, they gained market share. The major insurance companies did. So they have smaller competition and just more cash, more capital, more assets, and they're the ultimate beneficiaries of it. And like Ryan said, if the government's subsidizing a portion of it, then it's, it is what it is. I mean, it's
and with Medicare
from it.
With Medicare exists for so long, the government's always had its a share of the pie in there in one way or another. And you're absolutely right when it comes to like these big insurance companies lobbying for it, because it wasn't your little guys lobbying for it, it's the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
And when the government's involved and the government's a player in the game, you're never going to beat the government. The government can mandate the price. The government can set this stuff. So there's really no the competition is everyone else versus the government. And in that situation, when the government's a player, only the huge companies are going to survive, and they're going to buy out all these companies or wait for them to fail. And unfortunately, when Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act came through, that's what happened. They just waited for these small ones to fail so you can drive up premium prices without any competition to bring it down. And the government technically will have to follow suit with the big companies since they're not the biggest player in the game either, but they have to be there because they're the government and it's mandated. So because they have to be there, they just have to stay within line of the prices of these big insurance companies who can now charge whatever the hell they want. And there's zero free market in it when the government's involved. And even if like American healthcare became 100% private, government was out of there, the damage has been done, that there's already like a base layer put down, and these small companies aren't going to be able to come in and target the big dogs. And that's my biggest issue with pre-existing conditions, is that should be in way for a small company to incentivize, where, hey, you can come to us, we're smaller, but we don't charge for pre-existing conditions, we go with it. So they'll get more buyers who'll pay more money and they can grow as a company. And yeah, I think that's how capitalism works.
Exactly, dude. You fucking nailed it right there, Gary. And this obviously caked into this debate is the abolition of the patent system, I'd like to point out. So that way, you know, these life-saving drugs can be cheap as dirt like they are in Mexico and other places. So tie it all together, and that's, you know, nothing in what we just said or what you just said is what Biden really wants to do. Like he doesn't want a free market. Yes, exactly.
And he says that he's the one Democrat who was for private insurance companies. And that might be true in the debates, but anybody who supports Obamacare can't be for private insurance. The biggest fucking joke is that nobody lost their health insurance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
he fucking said that.
That's baloney.
People I can't believe that people actually buy into that fucking statement too. They're like, yeah, it was great. Nobody lost their. Well, how many people do you know? Because I know several people who lost their private health insurance plans that they had for years.
Or what happened was the company that held their plans went under, so like they were forced to get a new one at whatever price it was at. Like that's the biggest lie of the night so far.
Yeah,
and that's absolutely ridiculous. And like I don't get how that's not attacked more. How they let that go and nobody lost insurance. Like, or when Biden's like, people are laying in bed, what happens? What if I get sick? Listen, I am out of shape, overweight, and not the healthiest person in the world. I currently don't have health insurance. I have to wait till I get married to get health insurance because it's a way better plan than what my work offers. Also, hotels have really shitty health insurance, and it's going to cost me $200 a month to have insurance through my company if I wanted it. Like, for shitty insurance, like you're trying to tell me that's always been a thing, and that Obamacare isn't the reason why my company's average hotel company insurance, which is shitty in the big picture, is $200 a month or a check.
It's skyrocketed
a check
under Obama.
And you remember when Obama said that the average household would save, what was it, $2,200 a year with Obamacare plan, subsidized insurance? Well, that was bullshit. Like your doctor, you can keep your doctor bullshit. And it used to be yin and yang. You could get high premiums, low deductibles, or high deductibles, low premiums, whatever, but you're getting more of both and have been for years now because of these mandates from the government.
Yeah.
The mandate.
And the only affordable way is to do an HSA, and that doesn't protect you if something big were to happen to you. Like, you can technically skirt by the Obamacare rules with the health savings account, but if you get cancer or if you get in an accident, like you only really have the money that you saved over how many years at your company, and you're fucked if it's got to be continuing treatment. So even like the cheap alternatives through the Obamacare system, like, aren't beneficial to people unless you never get hurt or never get injured. But that's the point of insurance.
Mm-hmm. Right on, man.
Shall we continue this?
Yeah. I'm just real sensitive when it comes to health insurance.
Oh yeah, that was a good spot to stop.
Said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why isn't he talking to his Republican friends?
Let me follow up with you, Vice President
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because
Republicans
let me
will
ask
pass
Vice
it.
President Biden a question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they could keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with
bill
these
that was
guys?
passed in the
Oh,
House
so responsible
was a
for other
bailout
Republicans say?
of badly run, high crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right,
By the way,
I want
if
to.
I get elected, I'm not
Trump
going to.
does
I'm
so
running
well
as a proud
answering
Democrat,
this.
but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American,
Stop
United
repeating
States.
yourself,
And
stupid
folks,
Joe.
every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate
Just
for
trust
the
me.
United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot
fuck.
about struggling small businesses
Yes.
and business owners
God
these
damn
days.
it. Here
Do
we
you
go.
think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal
Oh
minimum
my
I
wage.
do, because I
fucking
think
God.
one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back.
They're going
They
under,
passed
and he wants a $15 an
package
hour
that
minimum
allows
wage.
us
You don't
to
bail
be
them
able
out
to
with
call
minimum wage.
PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely, schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. It's not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to
Excuse me,
immigration,
one thing very
but I
quickly.
want
He
to
said
get
we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option.
Yes.
Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont.
yes.
Every state is different. It should be a state option.
you said very
we have
recently-
to help. It's very important. We have to help our
Some
small
fucking
businesses.
sense.
You
How
said-
are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very
Not true,
recently you would
by the way.
consider raising the federal minimum
it.
wage to
That's
$15
100%
an hour.
true.
You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15
What I
an
really
hour. Is that
like,
still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really
administration?
like, in a second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, I've lived in different places. I know different places. They're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would
Okay,
be
President
ruinous.
Trump, thank you. Quick
No
response,
one
Vice
should
President
work
Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty.
So stop fucking
People are
taxing
making
them
$6, $7,
into
$8 an
oblivion.
hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is
What
no
first responder
evidence that
job
when you
doesn't
raise
make
the minimum
$15 or
wage,
more?
businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going
Name
to talk
one-
about immigration.
name
We're
one.
going to
Name a
talk about immigration
paramedic
now,
that doesn't-
gentlemen, and we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr.
bullshit.
President, your administration separated children from their
More
parents
shit.
at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero-tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children
Nothing
are
new.
brought here by coyotes
Yeah.
and lots of bad people, cartels.
I'm gonna check Facebook quick, see
and
what
they're
Richter's
brought here,
saying.
and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through
But
merit.
how will you
But
reunite
let me
these
just tell
kids
you,
with their
Let me
families,
just tell you,
Mr.
they
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages. And then they had a picture in a certain newspaper, and it was a picture of these horrible cages. And they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them. And then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids
Yes,
with
we're
their
working on
families?
it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this
525
conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border
No.
to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. Real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
they
to that?
Did it. We changed.
did not
They built the
separate
cages.
they-
who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what
Who
we're
built the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're
Yes.
talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 of sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I will
about
say
it.
this. They
10
went down.
seconds,
We
and
brought
then I need to ask
reporters,
you a
everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some of
They've
them
gotten
haven't been
such
reunited
But
with their
just ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask him that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your
Do
immigration
it.
policy, Mr. Vice President. The Obama administration did
Oh,
fail to
come
deliver
on.
immigration reform, which had been a key promise
Yeah,
during the
Obama
administration.
deported more
It
people
also
than
presided
anyone.
over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because
To
we
him.
made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100
Really?
days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy and they want to do that is they've gone to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River and it's illegal. And you say, oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you. They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
President
Kristen,
Trump,
he
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've
We
changed
did.
without having a specific. We got rid of catch and release. We got
just
rid
said
of a
he made a
lot of
mistake.
horrible things
So
that
what is
they
it,
put
Joe?
in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President
Wrong.
Biden, your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing. This is
Did
the
they,
first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's
Ask
never
Cuba.
happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following
Obama
premise: why I
banned
deserve
asylum
it under
for
American
Cubans.
law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response,
so
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them, we would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years, we're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe. They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay, President Trump, let's give Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
You don't know the law, Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
He went there.
Jesus Christ.
It's simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's move on.
But we don't have to worry about it
because
they terminated it, so we don't have to worry about it
Let's
anymore.
move on to the next
And you have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right, let's talk about our next section, which is race in America. And I want to talk about the way Black and brown Americans experience race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has a graduate degree from University of Pennsylvania social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child, when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street. Making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is, there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. Well, guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do do those just to give people a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the black community.
Thank you.
And they were called, and he called them super predators. And he said that. He said it, super predators. And they have never lived that down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has done more for the black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln,
look at his
possible
fucking face.
exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice reform. Obama and Joe didn't do it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture, and everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding, and I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them, and they like me and I like them. But I saved historically black colleges and universities.
Okay, and we're going to talk about both of your records, but your response to that, Vice President?
My response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people.
Yeah,
he talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of what
Joe
the crime
Biden didn't want his kids to go to segregated schools.
Look, and talk about, granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact,
I don't think that's
initiated
true.
by
I went
Barack
through them all
Obama.
one day.
And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail
That's what his
because
crime
they
bill
have a
is all
drug
about.
problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail.
That's true,
we should
though.
fundamentally
You want to
change
eliminate
the
the drug
system,
war.
and that's what I'm going to do.
But why
Stop the
didn't he
drug
do
war.
it 4 years ago? Why didn't you do that 4 years ago, even less than that? Why didn't you do it? You were vice president. You keep talking about all these things you're going to do and you're going to do this, but you were there just a short time ago and you guys did nothing.
We did.
You know, Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character, you know our reputation for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up, please respond, and then we're going to have follow-up
If this stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a
Here we go.
politician.
All right.
So don't
Bring it
give
up.
me
Bring
the
up the
stuff about
laptop.
how you're this innocent
You got to
baby.
wind it up.
Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody.
President Trump, I want to
from
stay
hell.
on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
Laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're
Nobody.
talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I
you've
have
just
to respond to that.
Please,
Because look,
very
there
quickly.
are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
And that's exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This
was
is
going.
where he's going. The laptop is Russia, Russia,
Gentlemen,
Russia?
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President,
again with Russia.
We're going to continue on the issue of race. Mr. President,
believe
you've
that one.
described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
Well, what do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't
by
know.
the-
I mean, I don't know what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It's
Yeah,
a
I'm sure
very,
he's not
it makes me
racist. That's
sad.
quite the statement.
Because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys. Last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a follow-up.
Excuse me? Not the
Made a
fucking
reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said
where
you're
did that-
Abraham Lincoln.
No, where did that? No.
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm
I
saying-
didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
Oh, God.
tens of thousands of
Yes.
black men, mostly in jail.
All right, let me,
And you know
let me,
what?
let me
They
ask
remember
Vice
it
President
because if
Biden
you look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that
Biden
you treated them
about-
very, very badly.
The-
Just
the-
take a look at what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden, let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are brothers, they're fathers, they're uncles, whose
Oh,
families
shit.
are still to this day, some of them
Jeez.
suffering
Jesus
the consequences.
Christ.
So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
He's got to prepare
One of
an
the
went
answer.
for it.
is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change the since then, particularly the portion on
Right.
cocaine.
Have you?
That's why I've
Right.
been arguing that, in fact,
Have
we
you?
should not send
Fucked 'em.
anyone
Does
to
your son does
jail
cocaine?
for a
decades.
pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money on. That's why I set up drug
Bullshit.
courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done because I think maybe the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass
Now you
those
wanna
laws
get it done.
relating to drug. But they were not in the crime
Yeah.
bill.
But
Okay,
why
so-
didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians. Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president. You were vice president along with Obama as your president, your leader, for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a
Your
lot of it
response.
done. We released
didn't
38,000.
get
We
anything
got
done.
38,000 prisoners left from the.
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison.
Doesn't
we
change
have,
the policy,
There were
that's the
over
problem.
1,000 people who were given
Exactly.
clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I
Quick
just
response,
asked,
and then we're
I
gonna
just
move
asked
on
one
to climate
question.
change.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going
Jesus Christ,
to
he's
undo
killing
that.
it.
Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why,
Because-
Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President
Because
Biden,
we had
and
a
then we're
different-
going to move on to the next section.
We had a
Fucking
Republican
smooth.
Congress.
Wow.
Oh, right, of course. All right. We had a Republican Congress.
You got to talk them into it, Joe.
All
Sometimes
right.
you got to talk them into it.
We're going to move on to our next section,
Like I
which
did with
is
criminal
climate
justice
change.
reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen, we're running out of time, so we got to get on to climate change, please. You both
That's bullshit.
have
He's
very
taking
different
credit for what
The
Trump did.
94 crime
Ryan,
bill.
you want to
Yeah.
pause it,
Trump,
Ryan?
you say that environmental
Want to
regulation.
pause it?
Yeah, so the 94 crime bill.
Honestly, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, the 94 crime bill, when that was passed, it was Bill Clinton in office. Was it Al Gore? Yeah, Al Gore as vice president, as I understand it. Joe Biden pretty much wrote it up. And didn't the Democrats have both houses of Congress?
I think they had just the House and like a very minor majority of Republican Senate, or
Okay.
vice versa.
From the way it looked, is
It-
they just made it seem like a strong police bill. That's the way they really pushed
Yeah.
it, saying like, "Well, look, the Democrats they're tough on crime, and the Republicans want to be tough on crime." So it's like they kind of met in the middle.
Well, a lot of Republicans voted for it too, mind you. Like,
That's what I'm saying.
yes, you can. Yeah. So, but like Joe Biden's name is co-author on it, and that's one thing that's not brought up here. Is he's trying to make it sound like, oh, it passed 100%, all the senators signed it, but like he authored it. He's the one who did that, and that's arguably the
He
biggest injustice to
fought
African
for
Americans.
it
And
on the floor.
yeah,
He was the one pushing it so goddamn hard. Like,
Yeah.
he was in those hearings, whatever whatever you call them, whatever else shows up on C-SPAN. Like, you can go and watch the video from when he was doing it and bragging about it and how there's going to be over 100,000 cops. Like, he was bragging about putting more cops in the street, that they were gonna charge everyone for a crime, that you were gonna hang anybody who was doing anything except for jaywalking. So it's like he was bragging about how tough it was gonna be.
Trump is really hammering that part, saying that, you know, the tens of thousands of predominantly and primarily black people and brown people that were locked up because of those policies were locked up because of, you know, nonviolent drug offenses. And that really acts as the criminal justice reform narrative that the left tries to push, or that tries to take credit for.
I mean, this
So-
is the segment that I'm honestly most impressed with Trump. Like, when she said we're going to talk about race to America, I'm like, okay, like, here we go. Biden's going to take this one. But Trump came out firing on all cylinders and logically and clearly laid out the issues that Biden just came back and called him a racist, essentially, and said, you haven't done anything, even though there's proof there that he did stuff. Like, the First Step Act is way more
I think we lost him again. Frozen. Yep. I think while Gary is frozen, I'm just gonna throw this out there. You know, Trump is killing this tonight. He's probably the greatest president we've ever seen in our lifetimes. Way better than George W. Bush.
Okay, Ryan,
There he is.
Now we
you guys
don't
hear me?
suck.
There you are.
Okay, Ryan, first off, okay, we're friends. We don't need to attack each other. We're attacking Joe Biden. Okay, let's leave W out of this. He wasn't perfect, but neither are you.
Dude, how do you let fucking Dick Cheney
Stop.
just get away with all that shit?
Satan himself,
Okay.
Julius boy.
Here's the thing.
We don't see
We're not
Mike
here to
Pence
discuss-
going off, making billions of dollars.
He would if he could.
How though? I mean, how can you
I
just
don't
be
know.
like,
Okay.
I love G-dubs, even though there's all this corruption in this administration. Love him.
Okay. Say what you will about Dick Cheney. I'm not going to disagree with you.
I'm talking about
You
the
leave
Bush
W.
administration.
You leave my girl. Okay. You leave W, and you leave my girl Condi out of this. Okay.
All right, you were saying
W and
though?
Condi are safe. This is a safe space for W and Condi. Like, you leave my girl Condi Lee's out of this. Okay.
Okay.
Those are the two.
We'll give him a pass. Rumsfeld and
Say what
Cheney
you will
are off,
about
though.
say what you will about Wild Dick. Okay, he shot a person legally. Hillary Clinton still killed more people, but yeah, this is a safe space. We're not going after that. We're going after Biden and the Democrats. But am I still there? Can you hear me? Okay,
I can hear
so
you.
I don't know what's going on with my internet, but the thing I'm most impressed. I don't know if you heard me say this, but this is the most impressed I am with Trump tonight. Like, I thought that when race came up, he was going to lose this segment, but he's beaten Biden down. I love it.
Just crushing it.
Good.
Have hurt jobs in the energy sector.
Okay, on to climate
Vice
change.
President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change and climate warming, the global warming, is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 more years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit limit emissions will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new good-paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 million existing buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy,
Green New Deal.
saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health and our jobs are at stake. That's what's happening. And right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump, your
Today came out and said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan, that his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his plan, his environmental plan, you know who developed it? AOC +3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC +3. Look,
She's got a nice
their
rack.
real plan costs $100 trillion. If we had
Gotta
the
throw
best
that
year
in
in the
there.
history of our country for 100 years, we would not
I'd do
even
her.
come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because I want to make
I
bigger
put in
windows
earplugs
into
so I don't have to
smaller
fucking
windows.
listen to her.
As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely
It's
thing.
part of the fun.
This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't even know how it could
They
be
want a
good
bad
politically.
nuclear,
They
fuck
want
'em.
to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
And many other things.
Let me have the Vice President
It
respond,
is
and we're running out of
crazy.
time, and we have a lot more
You'll
questions to
destroy
get
our
to.
country.
So let's hear from the Vice President. I have a number more
I
questions.
don't know where he comes from. I don't know where he comes up with these numbers.
Queens.
$100 trillion. Give me a break. This plan was endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group.
False.
Labor, because they know the future lies. The future lies
'Cause they
in us
benefit.
being able to breathe, and they know they're good
You
jobs
lie.
in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is the solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, 45, 50
What do you
bucks
do
an
with the
hour.
recycle parts?
We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump,
Excuse me.
please
We are
respond, and then I have some
We are
follow-ups.
energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive, kills all the birds. It's very intermittent. It's got a lot of problems. And they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China. And the fumes coming up, if you're a believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist
Solar.
who said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run
Get
our
me a
big,
scientist.
beautiful
Bring up
factories
nuclear.
that we need to compete with the
Nuclear.
world.
Nuclear.
So
False.
it's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the
All right.
economy, get rid of your oil industry. You want, and what about fracking?
All right,
Now-
let me
now we have to ask
let
him
me
about
allow
fracking.
Vice President
I
Biden to
have
respond.
never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on
I-
tape.
I did. Show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is,
Yes.
he's
Yes.
flat lying.
Would you
Flat-
rule out
That's
banning
going to be
I'll put it on my
circulating
I do
tomorrow.
rule out banning fracking because
yeah.
the answer we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money in doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pod, and then
Excuse me,
we have.
he was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I
Good.
am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking
You said
and or
fracking.
oil
You
on
didn't say
federal
fracking.
Let
land.
me ask this
I
final
did.
question in this section, and then I want to move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they're making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic, for Black, for Asian, it's 9 times greater, the percentage gain, than it was in 3 years, than it was under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely. 9 times more. Now, somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it, and I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic.
Okay.
We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again.
All
And
right.
everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice
that.
President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And all the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turn in the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them, it matters how you keep them safe. What do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final question.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil
By
industry?
the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I will
that's
transition.
a big statement.
It is a big statement
That's a big
because
statement.
I would stop
Why would you do that?
because the oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
And here's the deal, but
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time, and I'd stop giving to the oil industry. I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas. Excuse me, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give
All
it
right.
to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I
Ohio.
have to get to the final
for
question.
Trump.
Vice President Biden.
He takes everything out of context. But the point is, look, we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production, by 2050 totally.
All right. One
Is he gonna
final
get
question
China to
both
do
of you.
it?
No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our final
rejoin Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right,
That'll
this
cost you
is
$1
about
trillion.
leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you, Mr.
We have to make our country totally successful as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it, and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, et cetera. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right. Vice President Biden, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
I will say, I'm an American president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move
Science
forward
over
because we have
fiction.
enormous opportunities
This is what
to
he
make
would
things
say if
better.
he lost.
We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country: decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for a very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most importantly, thank you to those watching tonight. Election Day is November 3rd. Don't forget to vote. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna switch over my phone quick.
Well, it's pretty obvious who won that one.
Very obvious.
I'm back. Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah, my laptop sucks. It kept like breaking out over both their final stuff. But I can actually put headphones in and hear stuff and not be as loud breathing, so I'll take
you're
it.
Good. You're good.
That I think Trump won that one.
He was smooth.
Yeah, he definitely crushed that one. Because
A lot better than the last one.
yeah, and the one thing that I was noticing in this is that Trump, he's not. How do I word this? He's not speaking with like prepared statements. You know, he typically doesn't. It's just on the fly, just shooting the shit with somebody. It seems a lot more real and raw. Biden was prepared for a lot of that shit. Like when she asked about the oil companies and like around the fences, like Biden's like, this is exactly what they're talking about. This, and that. When typically he can't remember fucking shit. So it's not like he has all this information. Absolutely. He had a prepared state for every question. Like, that's what it seemed like to me. Because he typically cannot handle shit like whenever somebody, like a reporter asks him something like that, he'll be like, get up in your face.
Like that one guy who asked him if he had connections to Burisma, the Ukrainian gas company, for which his son worked, or quote worked. And then he didn't even give a coherent response like that. Obviously, he had time to rehearse. This was, I think, last year or something like that. And he said, basically chided him and degraded the man in front of the audience and didn't answer the question.
Yeah.
And he knew at some point somebody was going to ask him about it, whether it was a reporter or just an audience member or something. And he didn't answer with the clarity and smoothness that he did there, which goes with what Ryan was saying. He probably knew what was coming down the pipe and he gave prepared statements.
Yeah, you ask Trump a question, it seems like a much more real answer. You ask Biden a question, you typically don't get an answer at all. But then you get all these answers tonight, and he has the terms, he's got the numbers, he's all prepared for whatever is coming his way. So that to me was very odd, especially given the person who's the moderator. She already fed questions to the Clintons.
That's true.
So why wouldn't that happen again?
Exactly. Maybe the media wants Trump to win though because they get better ratings. They get double or triple the ratings.
That's got to be relevant in this whole conversation. Like,
definitely. You bet. And that's.
I can see you. Can't hear
you. I mean, the moderator, she really did hammer Biden with some of those questions, but obviously he was prepared. Probably he might have even been prepared just because he's been asked those questions so many fucking times or heard reports about, the 94 crime bill and everything. So.
Nothing, huh? Oh, well, whatever.
Oh, now we can't hear you. That was weird.
Oh, no. Well, I'm guessing other people were talking, and then from that point, that just drowns me out. So I didn't want to interrupt. I'm not sure what part of the debate you were on, but observations from my end at the very least were Biden did better than I thought he was going to. I think that's been a trend for the debates. He's been a lot more coherent than he is on the campaign trail. Take that for whatever it's worth. The funny thing that struck me is that Trump, who was very not hawkish on Russia 4 years ago, has now become a guy who seemingly has fallen in line with the thinking of being harsh on Russia and talking about how, Biden and Obama lost Crimea from the Ukraine when Russia basically annexed it. The president should know off of his 2016 platform that that's not something we particularly give a shit about. Those affairs are not something that we're to be worried about and shouldn't be worried about because it's a trap. It's the same way they tried to trap him to invade Syria. He said that the Russians were having so much influence within that region. And then they also laid out what I think is now proven to be false, the idea that Assad was chemically gassing his own people. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, to then go back and say, good Trump has been trying to make considerable efforts of detente against North Korea, and Biden just had to shove his foot in his mouth and somehow compare Kim Jong-un to Adolf Hitler before he dated. Wait a second. Who is he? Where's the Poland here? Who is the Poland here? South Korea? North Korea isn't going to invade South Korea. What is he on about? The only distinction between the two of them is that they're diktats. How they ruled their respective countries outside of their authoritarianism, how they've organized it, is vastly different in terms of, top to bottom organization. Furthermore, the Biden promising to be hawkish and calling him a thug and whatnot. Only person that could get away with that so far, because Trump called Kim Jong-un a fat little rocket man at the beginning of his term, and he still is able to prevent a nuclear war with the guy despite directly insulting him. He didn't just call him a thug or any other kind of stock name that a leader of the free world would call somebody who they have significant disagreements with. No, he called him fat rocket man, and yet he still crossed DMZ. Still crossed the DMZ before any of these other neocons or neo-lib motherfuckers. And South Korea has been able to recognize, well, there's been a detente to an extent. Crazy to me that
J-Rick, it's like when he called ISIS evil losers. Like when he
I'm surprised Trump didn't bring up Libya when Biden was talking about bringing North Korea to the deal. I'm very surprised that he didn't bring up the failings of the Obama administration. A very reason that happened so close to the time of the 2016 election that I'm sure weighed in a lot of people's minds about the aftermath of Libya. An aftermath that's still going today because it's basically a slave state. There is no essential central government within the state of Libya that prevents the slave trade from occurring again. They blew it up. They destroyed it.
And that's, what happened with Gaddafi and during the Obama administration, of course, him getting axed. That's why Kim Jong-un won't give up his nukes, obviously, because he saw what happened to Gaddafi when he gave up his heavy armament programs before Bush pretty much basically ordered him disarmed.
Well, yeah, soon as
that's why
he didn't want to get invaded.
Wink.
Yep.
It's crazed. It's utterly crazed to hear, the Biden camp come out. It's not surprising. Every single administration since Truman has been hostile to the North Koreans, and with good reason. But none of them have really tried a detente approach. to the extent that the Trump administration has. And it's been an administration that, although North Korea continues to build up its nuclear capacity, which I gotta say, I can't particularly blame them. I don't like them having it. I'm sure the sanctions will continue until Kim can feel somehow secure that he's going to get out of this rat trap alive, which who knows if he is or isn't. But, to fester it even further after we've made progress in the South Korean president meeting with Kim Jong-un, something that hasn't happened on the Korean Peninsula, a North Korean and a South Korean leader meeting together at the DMZ and crossing both sides to then come back and say, you're going to fucking ruin that? Wonderful. The Israeli deals with the Arab countries, as I thought, weren't going to be mentioned. Afghanistan wasn't mentioned. Iraq wasn't mentioned. What was mentioned, which I think is going to bite Biden in the ass, is talking about getting rid of the oil industry. Because it's learn to code all over again. This is a fucking rerun. It's just little pieces of the script have been altered. It's like the showrunners got lazy with this season and decided to rehash all the plot lines. It's just they needed to add different things in so they could try to fool the fans. But make no mistake, they've done it again. From deplorables all the way to learn how to code, it's all a rerun.
Yeah, just hitting the working class of all people, especially in Pennsylvania, by saying he said, quote, "I never said I oppose fracking,"
which is bullshit
in this debate. Yeah.
Did you see the big swing in the Pennsylvania support for him too, from like 57% to 43% after that?
Oh, it's gonna be an ugly next couple of days for that administration.
When will the Democrats learn that you can't go and say shit about major industries and states? Look at Hillary in Michigan. Like that is one of the biggest reasons why she lost, because she didn't campaign there. And when she talked about them, when she talked about what she's gonna do, she's pretty much like, "Hey, I'm gonna go fuck your entire state's economy, or one of the largest producers of revenue in your state." And they're like, "Fuck that! I don't want to lose my job if this bitch gets in." Like,
some of us have not forgotten under neolib, especially neolib. The neocons we knew were always going to fuck our families over, but the neolibs didn't hold up their end of the bargain by trying to keep American jobs here, especially in the automotive industry, where my family has a great deal of members a part of. And that is not a memory that is going away anytime soon. I've not forgotten my father having the Ford plant in St. Paul closed down. Instead of being refurbished or done anything, instead they closed down the Ranger plant, they sent it elsewhere, and then my father had to move down to Kansas City, Missouri, an 8-hour drive away from me while I was in my teenage years. I've not forgotten that. I've not forgiven that, and I'm not going to forgive it now. And a lot of people aren't going to forgive this.
Powerful stuff when you start saying you're going to take away people's livelihoods to try to leapfrog in the energy sector, which has never worked in human history. It's always been a gradual progression. And I wish Trump would have nailed him on nuclear, because he definitely could have done that. Could have made Biden look like a fucking moron. But for next, I'm sure he can go with that. But
where was the talk on nuclear?
Yeah. Well, probably all
different sources, but no one brought up nuclear.
All energy sectors probably lobbied to not have that topic in the debate, I bet. Well, there's so many special interests in the energy sector and phasing out nuclear, obviously, and biggest part of that is the Green New Deal, because AOC and Kamala, they're with the Bernie crowd on that when it comes to ending nuclear power in America. But if you have nuclear power, then there's no need for this bullshit Green New Deal and all of the, I don't know, ridiculous spending projects in it. So that's why they don't really allow
nuclear
that.
Power done right, mind you.
Yeah.
Like more USA, less Japan.
You can't get as much of a power grab with nuclear as you could with solar and wind and redoing all the buildings and all of it.
Exactly.
It's the whole thing is always about money, which ultimately, if it's all about money, it's all about control as well. I don't trust these people. I particularly trust Trump with a lot of things, but I find him a lot more trustworthy. And I found that the country didn't blow up like I was promised it was going to.
I
in
don't
his
know
4
what's wrong with
years.
him.
And he
I'm not convinced.
Doomsaying generally doesn't work, and the more sure you sound of your predictions when it comes to these massive apocalyptic events, the more wrong you are. And that's what the Democrats need to eventually come to terms with, because the world hasn't ended, World War III hasn't started. He tried reaching out to North Korea, which the Obama administration didn't do. Stock market reached record highs, historic unemployment rates for blacks and Hispanics, and
the motherfucker, despite his best intentions, or his worst intentions, maybe, depending on how you look at it, he's been hawkish on Iran, he's been hawkish on Russia, no matter what all those people try to say. His influence in Syria and trying to set up a no-fly zone, which was insane, and his sanctions on Russia for the Crimean incident, they all indicate a hawkishness. Why is Vladimir Putin so desperate to fund a man who's been so hostile to him? He must be a 4D chess master. I'm just missing it. I must have missed something in this whole arrangement where any of this is beneficial to the Russians. And to just go even further, he assassinated Soleimani. He shot him out of the sky. Nobody's done that. That is the hottest that we have gotten with Iran since 1979. No, that's not right. 1989, I believe, when we shot their airliner out of the sky.
Yeah.
I think
that's when that's when HW said,
yeah,
I will never apologize for America. But I think the Soleimani thing is interesting too, because I think it was more of an intel thing where maybe the Russians gave him up because I think our intelligence community helped stop that terrorist attack in the metro. I'm not sure if it was Moscow or wherever it was, but
he was also on our step at the Baghdad embassy. He was at the embassy. We were going to get stormed again, like happened in Libya, like happened in Iran. Then we had guys there to put an end to it, and he starts getting on a charter flight to get back to Iran. What did you think was going to happen? That killing, despite it not being within the authorization of, congressional granting Trump the ability to do that. Well, Congress has granted Trump the ability to do that, essentially by bestowing upon the executive infinite war powers. But the average Joe Schmo isn't going to care about that. By executing that action in that circumstance, he won, I think, a lot of people over of Middle Eastern descent and people who have paid attention to that region that aren't blue check.
Well, and he also got. Oh, go ahead.
So, architect of so much suffering within that region, of a great deal of murder and pillaging, that of course it was going to be a very popular decision with anybody who wasn't a political opponent to him. Yep. That's just my evaluation.
For sure. No, it's a great. You hit the nail on the head, Jay Rick. And it was funny that he kind of had leftists defending like Soleimani and the Iranians. Like leftists were saying, "Oh yeah, he's such a great guy," and the Trump administration assassinated a hero. And it's like, what? Didn't Alyssa Milano tweet some dumb shit about that?
Oh God, you can't really base your opinions off what she says, though.
Well, no, it's off of what people like her, commentators like her at that side of the aisle were saying. Not even on the fringes, but just
scholar that died.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that was Big Daddy, wasn't it?
I think Ryan's right.
Headline might have been the moment. That moment might have been. That headline was the moment I think I decided I had to go for Trump. I think that was it.
That was such a fucking ridiculous headline.
I immediately thought to myself, okay, I have to be all in on this. And I've tried to be objective as possible. Driver, I was sending stuff to you all day today where I was in an argument with a less than, let's say, sane individual on Twitter regarding the timeline
I hear there are a lot of those.
Courtney
Many of
Gower?
those.
Not Gower. No, Gower is. I don't think Gower would engage anyway. But you could just roll her up like you had ate some Taco Bell and throw that out the window. That'd be done and easy. No, I tried to at fault for the ACB nomination, and to paint the timeline. Back in 2013, the Senate, controlled by Democrats, was having a difficult time in appointing appellate judges because they couldn't get 60-40 no matter what. McConnell and the Senate Republicans, for whatever their reasons, weren't playing ball. The Democrats claimed they were appointing moderates. Apparently, McConnell and the GOP disagreed. But what are you going to do? You don't have the capability. What traditionally happened was either you made deals or you appointed even more moderate judges than what would fit your agenda. That's not what happened. At the time, Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader, introduced the concept of the nuclear option, whereas he subverted the 2/3 rule, the 60-40. And he said majority vote for all appellate courts. He did not specifically make it about the Supreme Court seats, but he still opened Pandora's box. So that gets passed. Lindsey Graham, I think, had a infamous line at this point for the left that says, "You're going to regret this." And come 2014, less than 2 years after that principle was introduced to the Senate, sure as shit, 9 seats flipped to the Republicans. Now they're the majority. And then another disastrous effect was the 2016 election, and also believing Mitch McConnell in the first place to say, let's wait for the election. Because, McConnell, the sociopath that he is, made it sound like a sane sort of proposal. Let's wait to fill this seat. And keep in mind, he said this seat. So he could technically go back and say, I wasn't lying, I only said this seat. He'd be a massive asshole. But Mitch McConnell's already a massive asshole anyways. What the fuck does he care? And Hillary lost. Merrick Garland was never nominated. And the Senate retained to Republican control. Now Pandora's box is slightly ajar. What is Mitch McConnell going to do? Although I'd like him to close the box, he kicked it all the fuck way open, because why not? These people have been fucking with me for the better half of these last couple of years. There's going to be a reprisal. It's payback time. Now you have three Supreme Court seats with people who the Democrats would no way find moderate. And they have no moral high ground to stand on, because the terms are until 2021. The Senate Majority Democratic Senator Harry Reid changed the rules and fucked them all. They've sowed the seeds for their own destruction, and they're doing it.
It's the Trojan horse, where whatever you do for your group is eventually going to benefit the other side.
They intended on fucking the Republicans in the ass. They didn't even get the head into the hole before the fucking Senate flipped, and the Republicans flipped them around on their back.
Yeah,
hasn't
McConnell appointed the most appellate court judges in American history?
The most under his term as the Senate Majority Leader under the Trump administration. Yeah.
Oh my God.
He fucked them all. And it's Dem incompetence that led to this. The Republicans hardly had to do anything. They just had to be standard politicians. And thank God, for their sake, at the very least, thank God lightning was caught in a bottle and Trump, beyond all odds, won the presidency. If
ACB really does make it to the Supreme Court of the United States, which are they going to vote on it this upcoming week? Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
So if that really happens and she does get to the Supreme Court, I think that the Republicans should switch it back to what it was before the nuclear option. That Harry Reid
go right back to 64.
That would be the smart thing, because if the Dems flip the Senate, well, now you're stuck. Now they're stuck.
Imagine if he waits until after the senatorial results come out and he sees what it is. That'd be the smartest play.
Yeah.
calculated and just cynical bastard of plays, but it'd be the smartest play because all you have to do is wait and see. Oh, did I gain a seat? Did I lose a seat? Is it going to flip? Oh, it is going to flip. Okay, well, since we have this power now, I'm going to take it upon myself, Mitch McConnell, and the Republican Party, after fucking our political opponents in the ass for the better half of 6 years, not allowing their judges to be even heard, to not humor the idea, I am going to change the rules back to once they were, because that is better for a functioning democracy.
Yeah, and like, how can the left
He would
fight?
burn so many people.
Oh,
How could the left honestly fight?
that would be
this?
amazing.
People be mad.
Like,
Gary,
what's your
you're,
answer? What?
your fucking Jeb icon. I just focused on.
Well, I figured I might as well remove my face and my name from this for safety reasons.
Yeah.
So,
There you go, dude.
Oh, Gary, I'm all in now. It's all over.
Well, you know, J. Rick calling out Gower on Twitter, that might be set off some fireworks there, you know, because it's not like the entire anybody who's based isn't going to have your back, you know, in the reply section.
Wait,
Not that you would need any
Who am I gonna-
backup.
dude,
Oh.
sometimes I look for backup and none of you motherfuckers are there.
You didn't call.
You got to be like Spenny and let us know when you tweet.
Yeah, I don't really get into it on like social media platforms anymore because it's not worth it.
Oh, yeah, so you're just better than the rest of us.
Well,
All right.
sometimes I'll do it. Don't get me
All
wrong.
right, well, I'm gonna see what okay, hold up.
I retweet a shit ton of stuff that would probably get me canceled in like a leftist culture, but
Oh, the culture we're living in right now.
more or less.
Thanks again, conservatives. What the fuck have you conserved? Where was the line? You never drew it.
Dude, the right is just disappointing on all
Right.
angles.
The right's in a fucking war against itself between MAGA and neocons. And anybody that falls in between, I mean, is just food for the wolves at this point. No,
Like the fact that nothing's going to happen with Hunter Biden and the laptop, even if there's child porn on it, like it just disgusts me.
nothing will happen.
Yeah,
It's already been
pretty troublesome.
unverified. CBS already said it's unverified. So why would we ever look into it?
It's the
Well-
Russians, you fools.
Which that doesn't make sense. Like it's hard to like pinpoint that one because it's like, okay, if it's Russian, if it's you're coming out and saying it's either not true and it's Russian information. So is it not true or is it Russian information? Like you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Can't
That's
be
what-
both.
Yeah.
Not a single denial about the contents, by the way.
Right, yeah.
Not
if
even
it-
tonight.
if it came from the Russians, but it's all true, like what's the bad part?
It's funny that they never talk about what's in the emails. It's just like the Podesta leaks. You talk about the fact that it was hacked and how wrong that is, but Hunter just left his laptop at a fucking repair shop, and now it's showing his cocaine habits, hookers, a
Which that's
family,
fine.
yeah, of course, winning. A Biden family member, according to the Revolver article, which they haven't been sued for libel or slander yet, and then the massive corruption with Burisma. And the laptop is in the FBI's hands, and they ultimately decide they can come forward and just end the Biden campaign right now. But what I think is going to happen, and what I said earlier to you guys, is that
What you said earlier?
But Gary,
excuse me, Gary, I missed that part because I was at a meeting.
Okay. Literally, you viewed it, and then you said the exact same damn thing. And I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
care because it's still a good take, but like,
Well, if
I'm
it
like,
happens,
dude.
if it happens, I'll take credit for it, man. It's okay. I'll give you a shout out.
But no, like the thing is, me and you are both the exact same. Like, we're thinking of the exact
For
same
sure.
lines. Like, this is
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
Yeah. If it goes that way, I mean, we'll see in swing states. You can't even gauge in swing states like what's happening. You just can't. You can't rely on the polling. All you can say is that, oh, Biden is maybe a few more points down from where Hillary was 4 years ago, and it's the same shitty, unreliable polling that they had 4 years ago.
Yeah, but Hillary was never down 4 years ago.
We're measuring the current race to 2016, and that's the most accurate gauge that we have because the last fucking polls got it so wrong the last time.
I mean, look at that thing I shared like today, like how wrong it was. It's just like I thought for sure going into election night, everything I was told, everything I read, everything I actually believed was that fucking Hillary is going to win in a landslide. And thank God that was wrong, because this has been the most entertaining 3 3/4 years of politics in my life.
Dude.
I don't want it to end. It definitely might come to an end, but I don't want it to end.
I want to know why everyone's been so quiet on the ballot harvest. Like, that hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
Like, is this
True.
back to the tinfoil hat theory, like, of this Biden laptop stuff? Is that just to cover up all the ballot harvesting stuff?
Something new just came up, Gary. It's something new every day or every week, whatever. It's the media constantly cycling. It's always cycling to try to continue to grab your attention. There's no great in-depth kind of evaluation of these stories as they come up. Only a few journalists will be able to gather what is true about the particularities of a story. All the others will participate in yellow journalism as a means of pushing who their preferred presidential candidate is, and then we move on to the next one. That's been the cycle for the better half of the last year and a half, and on the whole, the cycle has been this for the last 4 years, if not more. If not more.
And while I agree with that, like, I'm fine with CNN and MSNBC and all these libtard sites like posting whatever the hell they want. It disappoints me with like how much people religiously follow it. But then you have publicly funded through taxpayer dollars sources like NPR come out with the shit that they did today, which that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, fuck that.
School teachers telling me NPR was very reliable. You love that one, driver? Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Who said that? John Reeves?
Certain school teachers would always share NPR articles.
NPR is just a fuck. Well, here's the thing. It's just like any publicly funded thing. If there's great consumer demand for it, then people will voluntarily pay for those services or that channel or that radio station. So there's no need for taxpayer money to be pissed away. And if it's political and it favors one candidate especially, then fucking defund it.
It's state media. It's state media. Just on its principal face, it should be defunded. There's no sense for it. Is always in the interest of propagating where it receives its funding from.
Exactly.
That's it. It is always self-interested.
They're not gonna go against whoever butters their bread.
No, absolutely not. Why would they?
Then why is CNN so against Trump?
Because of the people that run it, apparently. I'm
sure people at CNN, like Jeff Zucker and those guys, have problems with Trump personally. Maybe they, I don't know, tried doing business with him in the past or something, but they definitely benefit from creating this fucking firestorm of a narrative, this perplexing, convoluted narrative. And then on top of that, if Trump gets elected, hey, better ratings, because if Biden gets elected, then the ratings are going to tank because nobody's going to fucking pay attention to him because it's going to be boring robotic statements. It's not going to be like these off-the-cuff zingers that Trump is amazing at.
Well,
made.
Oh, sorry, go
off
ahead,
of
Ricker.
How much money do you think that these news outlets have made in terms of advertisements by sucking consumers in, telling them they live under a fascistic state?
Yeah.
That's incredible to me. Is that Trump just got his Reichstag fired this year in COVID? That this was the very moment that he could have done unprecedented dictatorial things to radically change the not only the the executive's position within the federal government, but also the relationship between the federal and the state level. He could have rapidly and radically centralized all of it. And guess what? That's what the Democrats purport to want by wanting to put Biden into the office and saying mandatory mask mandate.
Yep. Well, it was crazy when it happened too, because Trump was saying, let's let the states decide whatever, their own policies that fit best for them.
Damn right.
Whether it's like super crazy like New York or California, or super free like South Dakota. The fact that he didn't take the reins of power and unilaterally do dictatorial shit is amazing. And the fact that Democrats wanted him to be able to do something, anything unilaterally, that just goes to show you how much they fucking worship the state. You know?
Yeah, because I mean, they either way they win that though. Like, if Trump becomes a dictator and does all that stuff, then they can just write bad shit about him. But if he doesn't, then it's he didn't support it. He didn't support it. So like, really, there's no way Trump wins on that.
Exactly. And it goes the same thing with like that just ties into the shutdown, obviously. If he shuts it down early and let's say hypothetically, significantly fewer deaths happen, well, then the Democrats are going to go after him for making the economy anemic through job loss. But if he doesn't shut it down at all, then they're going to go after him for the increased number of deaths.
How is it we live in a world where the predictions are 2 million deaths in America, and we don't get that, and we're at 200,000, and that's all of a sudden not a success, even though it's like percentage-wise significantly lower than what we're told it was going to be
from the top scientists and their models and projections.
So I was saying earlier, like, doesn't matter as long as there's a number. They're just going to point at this number and say this number is bad. It's 10,000, 200,000. It's a number. Someone died. It's more than one. It's bad.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, and how would any person, candidate, president ever? What would Joe Biden have done different? Would there have been 180,000 deaths? Like,
yeah, he never says like what he would have done, how many it would have saved, what the difference would have been. I think the only thing.
Did you wear your mask?
Yeah, did you wear your mask? And it'd be like 100,000 lower. So.
Yeah, that's so crazy. He said there were going to be an extra 200,000 deaths by the end of the year.
Yeah, in the next 2.5 months. And with almost every state except for Mississippi and South Dakota having a mask mandate, then if the number doubles in a 2.5 months from April, does correlation equal causation? Do masks not work? Like, how's that go?
I mean,
That's what
I
I'm
think
getting.
they would make it work.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you can't make the argument that since Minnesota's mask mandates, we've doubled our number of COVID cases, because correlation does not equal causation. There, it's a point to make, but it's not ironclad by any means.
True.
Unless you look at it, okay, let's get scientific here. We've talked about this. We've had this conversation many times. When you're dealing with germs, bacteria, shit like that, it's going to spread from surface to surface. And they claim this one's airborne. So if people are going around touching shit, and then they're directly going and grabbing their mask, how does that slow the spread? How many people are touching their mask? You watch Joe Biden when he's out there speaking, he is touching his mask constantly. Look at my thumbnail for this shit. It's fucking Joe Biden pulling down his mask so he can cough into his hand. Like, what does that do? It's just the masks do.
No, you have a point, but I'm just saying that it's not 100% like. There's other reasons for it too. Why there's more cases, like more testing.
Are you saying that we've had our
relevant to
science
that.
wrong on bacteria and viruses all this time?
No, I agree with you on that. I'm just saying that that's not the only specific thing. Like, it's also like the reason why there's so many more cases now is because testing is rampant, like ramped up so much in the state of Minnesota in particular, if that's what we're talking about. Like,
Right.
you can't discount that. Like, yes, I think it's true. I think that there's serious bacterial issues that we're ignoring with masks, and especially people like the surgical masks, the ones I normally wear, like those should be thrown away in a biohazard bag at the end of every day. And or even like the reusable masks, how often are they washed? Like, even if you breathe into it for 8 hours in a day, you're still having all that breath come out, and it's a moist, dark environment where bacteria is just going to thrive. So, like, I think that there's definitely problems, and I don't support mask mandates whatsoever. But I'm saying that you can't just say, "Oh, masks don't work because the number of cases have doubled since the mandate started." There's a lot more to the science than that. Like, it's a part of it, but
you can
it's not the whole picture.
Oh no, of course it's not going to be 100%.
Not all,
but it's going to be a
not
significant
all 100
percent.
cases. Not all 100,000 cases are just because people are wearing masks and masks don't work.
Right.
It's because, like, all the reasons listed before. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying I disagree with that. I'm just saying that's not the sole reason. There's, other good, solid reasons that carry like 15% of the share.
Driver and I got into this earlier. We don't even know what we're tracking.
That's true.
We have no idea what these numbers even fucking are. Are we even just tracking the flu now? Because I wondered that. I was like, how many people get the flu and don't die?
Well, didn't you see that thing I posted? How in April, all of a sudden the flu cases spiked up and then spiked down, as if almost like they're being classified as something else.
Right.
From the Minnesota State website.
Wild.
Because to me, I don't know. However, how close we tracked just the common flu. Like, if we really wrote down like every single case and how many. Well, I mean, you don't know that number because people just get over it. They don't go in and report.
That's me. That's mostly young people, because they're just like, fuck it. Like, I'm not going to go in for every small thing. And even if they're sick, I think they're more, they want to weather it out. And I'm definitely in that group. And so if I don't go in and actually get tested and put on a piece of paper or a computer as a number, then I'm not counted. So you can't say for sure the real number.
Have you monsters and bigots ever maybe decided that maybe it's because not everybody has affordable health care, so they can't go in?
Then why is this all happening after Obamacare?
Well, because Trump ruined everything. Clearly,
I thought Obamacare was gonna make everybody heal instantly with a wave of the wand, and prices were gonna magically go down, and laws of economics that have stood for thousands of years were magically going to just take a break. But
I'm just amazed that made out to be Lex Luthor-esque supervillains in this current time frame. It's amazing to see the amount of hyperbole that is being implemented. They are saying that the Republicans want to kill people without going so far. It's been the general implication, which is arguable because the Republicans, at least the neocons, are power-hungry political assholes who kind of need a populace to be able to rule over, and the more the merrier, because it continues to line their pockets because it's a higher tax base. So it's laughable that that's even the line of attack that they're going after. It's not even a difference of policy anymore, which would make me respect a bit more the line of attack on Democrats as it's been for, vaguely since 2012, but now overtly since 2016 onward, is Republicans want to kill you. And
really, turned into that.
It's like the Paul Ryan ad, granny in a wheelchair getting tossed over a cliff.
God.
That's been the rhetoric.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I've never openly said it before, but I just don't want this magical ride to end because I'm enjoying myself too much.
Yeah,
I enjoy you find out something about times of crisis. If these last 4 years have been at times of crisis, I find out I love this shit. I love chaos. Trump is the ultimate weapon to be utilized against the establishment because he's on the outs. It doesn't even matter if he's ruled well or not. He probably hasn't ruled nearly as well as any of the greatest presidents of our time. But you know what? He hasn't been the worst one. Everybody who's been saying he's not been the greatest, he's not been the worst, but the one thing he's been great at is making establishment puppets utterly explode and to make their puppet master lose their shit to a point where now you're able to hear all of the little codes and all of the little phrases that are sent out in a manner that you just like, oh, wait a second. Oh, I recognize this. No. This is just some dog and pony stuff that's meant to distract me. No. We're not doing this again. And I hope it doesn't end. If only for 8 years of my life I can enjoy politics, I hope these are the 8 years. And I hope that fat bastard wins this election and keeps this going longer and longer and longer. I hope they get rid of the 25th Amendment and try to elect him a third time.
Don't tease me. Don't talk.
It's like when he tweets out that video where it's like and it shows Trump going like 30 64 in like 4,000 years.
They fact check that sort of stuff.
That's so funny.
There's no election on this year or this year or this year. I lost it. They've lost themselves.
Fucking fact check that.
It's so amazing to watch. It's wonderful to see. And, family members of mine are like, why would you vote for him? And I gave him this reason. I said, have you not been entertained? Kurt Russell, a gladiator? Are you not entertained? Have you not been laughing hysterically at this stuff? You must have a sense of humor or something.
Money, so that's where I'm at.
I'm doing fine. The world hasn't blown up.
And hey, if Biden gets into office and rolls back the child tax credits and the Trump tax cuts, then I think liberals are going to miss those. Liberals are going to miss those extra savings. And if Trump gets elected and they don't want those savings, they can always donate it to the Treasury. I just had to bring that up here.
No, and I agree with you. And that's the thing. Like, people are always like, "Oh, the billionaires, the rich, the 1% don't pay their fair share." It's like, why don't you give more of your tax up? It's like super easy to do that. Like,
yeah, the top 1% pay like 60% of the all income taxes in America.
How do you quantify the fair share? That's always a wonderful question to shoot back. How are you going to quantify?
Central planning, Jonathan. Central planning is better than the free market.
Oh, stop.
And everything.
Get your commie ass out of here.
Seriously.
It's just wild ride.
All right,
and
we have 5 minutes here that we can wrap this up.
Yeah, I gotta go to bed soon.
Thoughts. I mean, I've mostly made mine as articulately as I can, but I could go for one more round here, I suppose.
All right, you get 1 minute.
Fuck
Go.
one, marry one, kill one.
1 minute. Am I gonna get muted? Am I going to get muted by Gary? Is he going to hate gingers again and try to make kind?
I've never stopped.
You're just an abomination. You people.
Richter,
Yes.
who's the
Yes,
hottest? Who's the hottest, famous, and well-known celebrity ginger? That's a female.
Scarlett Johansson.
Emma Watson.
She's not ginger.
I don't know.
What about Deborah Messing? Hey, what about Deborah Messing?
Deborah Messing.
She's not one of our kind.
Yeah,
I know. I
had to think.
claimed Sophie Turner before I claimed Deborah Messing.
Yeah, I'd give her my business. Queen of the North.
Let's end it there. That's cool.
Back to the debate, I suppose. Biden looked good, but I just don't think, even on his good day, that he was able to keep up. And both candidates have a lot of problems.
Definitely.
I'm looking at it from not only an economic standpoint, not only from a cultural standpoint, but from a personal standpoint of, when I tried to raise a red flag on this stuff back in February, specifically COVID, Trump's words rang out to me fairly well. He got called a xenophobe hate. And he joined the club very quickly along with me. So
I'm glad he brought up Nancy Pelosi in Chinatown too.
fantastic. It was a wonderful response to Biden. So it eventually devolves down to saying that spite is a very powerful thing. And I'm a fairly spiteful individual after these 4 years. And that might be the biggest thing to influence my vote.
There you go, man.
All right, driver, you want to go?
Yeah, it was a good debate. I disagreed with Trump on a few points, but he still came out on top and he was smooth. And
Like what?
he, I would just say the tariffs. That's
He didn't
really
bring that up.
It
got
brought
mentioned.
up. Yeah.
Got mentioned kind of in passing. When it came to like counteracting China or China's collective actions toward the U.S. and the American people in general. But aside from that, I mean, I thought he performed really well. I thought Biden certainly did better than he did the last debate, and it was more civil, and we gained a lot of perspective. Really.
Yeah, he definitely did better this time around. All right, Feldman.
I would disagree. I don't think he did as well. I think he stumbled over his words a lot more. I had some,
Biden or Trump?
Biden. I think Trump did a lot better.
Okay.
I think the mute button worked in favor of Trump. I think Biden stumbled over his words quite a lot and couldn't really recover from any of it. And he was playing defense the entire time while Trump was on the offense, and the shots he took were the same as last debate. The thing I'd like to part on is to ask Driver, what's it going to take to get you to actually go to a polling station and vote this year? As the most anti-voting person I know, what's it going to take for you to go say, fuck the Democrats?
Well, I was telling Trump, or not telling Trump, I was telling Ryan, probably like maybe 3.5, 4 hours ago that I'll probably vote Trump just for the sheer entertainment value, and I want to see liberal heads explode.
All right.
It's worth it.
I might even record. I'll probably even record it. I'll write in. That's okay. True, but I'm gonna put Zach Zerbis for every other available position. So I'm just gonna write him in.
Ted Freeze.
Yeah, I hung out with Zerbis, so that was awesome. But yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Close up.
I mean, I thought it was a great debate. I liked seeing Trump go off. I think having it didn't seem like the mutes were working for Biden very much. He did get muted, but there was a lot of times that Biden was able to just jump in and interrupt. But I think all of it worked in Trump's favor.
Mm-hmm.
There was so Biden looked at his watch.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying earlier, Biden just did not seem genuine. It seemed all prepared. He seemed to know what was coming, especially when oil came up. That seemed too obvious to me. Okay, John,
right,
we know that they feed questions. This lady specifically fed questions to the Clinton campaign.
Oh, did she?
She did. It's on video. I'll send it to you in the boy chat. It's cringe, dude. It's cringe.
Ryan, are you back on Facebook yet?
No, not yet. I didn't get enough votes, so it didn't happen.
I thought this one Wallace was, which is something, but
she did better, but she still fed questions.
Well, it seemed like it, but To have that as as that little tidbit of information in her background comes as no surprise, considering one, somebody in the Biden camp, I believe it's Kamala Harris's somebody who's a agent or administrator or assistant to Kamala Harris has ties to being some sort of high-ranking executive at Twitter. So none of this is surprising. I'll gladly take a look at it. I'd love to see it. Before I get out of here, Driver, I have an idea that just came to mind. Maybe you gentlemen can elaborate on it. So if Trump's blaming the Chinese, and we owe a lot of our debt supposedly to the Chinese.
Oh God, here we go.
Why?
Just say fuck it, yeah.
Why don't we just go 1922 Soviet Union and say no? We're not paying any of this back.
Oh Jesus Christ! They would honestly set up a blockade, like for half the fucking Pacific, and we would have to. We could just set up our supply chain in Central America and South America or something. But if we want to get anything from that side of the fucking world, it's just no.
But we have ships in the South China Sea. There's already nukes there.
We have Ted Freeze, Captain America himself, fighting for this country. We have the power of Ted Freeze. Okay.
Ted Freeze.
China is nothing. China is nothing, Jonathan.
Say it to China.
I know a story about a football town.
People say they're the best around.
All right, gentlemen.
Stop.
Good.
Driver, the other day I was driving home, and I had my Pandora on my Bluetooth, and the song "Old Red" by Blake Shelton came on.
And you sang it.
Old Ted.
Dude, here.
You
Oh,
consider yourself mighty lucky to get past the Vanix and the Jeffrey Helms. All these years that I've been here, ain't nobody got past Ted.
Gary, no, we gotta record you singing that around a fucking bonfire. Please. Gary, come on. Gary, it's so fucking funny.
It is.
All right. Here.
Alrighty.
We gotta watch this quick. Have you guys all seen this?
I don't know. Let's see. Go to watch stream.
Credit.com. So let's go to the tape.
Go right to Kristen Welker. Kristen, go ahead.
He's okay. Okay. And I'm going to ask you about Flynn.
Kristen, go ahead. You're live.
Kristen, please.
Kristen Welker in the spin room. I believe she has the Clinton Communications Director with her. Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, thank you. I think this is his last question. Hey, Ari, I'm here with...
Did you catch that?
I think this is the last question.
Sure, the last question.
Okay, so she first starts off saying, like, I'm going to ask you about Flynn. And then they're, like, going back and forth, and she's like, I think this is going to be the last question. And she's talking to someone with the Clinton campaign. So, like, here, listen closely.
Go right to Kristen Welker. Kristen, go ahead.
He's... Okay. Okay. And I'm going to ask you about Flynn.
Kristen, go ahead. You're live.
Kristen, please.
Kristen Welker in the spin room. I believe she has the Clinton Communications Director with her. Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, thank you. I think this is his last question.
Go ahead.
Hey, Ari, I'm here with Communications Director Jen Palmieri for the Clinton campaign.
I mean, at least Donna Brazile had the courtesy of doing it by email so that we couldn't hear the tone of voice.
So she's right there on live TV admitting, like, these are the questions we're going to ask you. This is probably going to be the last question. And who knows what else they discuss before it ended up on air. This is the chick that moderated tonight's debate.
It's ridiculous.
And she fed debate questions to Clinton previously.
It definitely felt like 2 versus 1 for a while there.
And that's what I'm saying, how Biden seems so prepared. This lady's in with the Democrats.
You're just a crazy conspiracy theorist, Ryan.
I just showed you the tape that was live on TV.
No, that can be proven wrong. That's debunked.
It's doctored. You're right.
Yeah.
It's the deep fake, man. We got the capabilities.
Like, there's so much BS, and like the fact that Joe Biden can have the answers and still not do as well as you would think he would, like, is just stupid.
It's because that shit doesn't work anymore. Not with Trump. It just doesn't, because he doesn't operate that way. Usually you have two people operating that way, but now you just get one, and then you get somebody who's down to earth. It doesn't match up.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden Biden stands out way more as being bad.
Which is, I don't know, like, you're absolutely right. Like, it does make him stand out more if he had the answers ready to go and still didn't hit it. Like, even if he didn't even have to hit a home run. It just seems like he wasn't, like, there.
Yep.
Like,
because he wasn't engaging in conversation. He had talking points, just things he was preloaded to say.
Exactly. Like, and I wonder how much his earpiece was being fed. Like,
yep.
Go here, go there, attack this, attack that. Like I said on my closing statement, I think he was just, Trump didn't do this, Trump did that, Trump didn't do this, instead of, here's what I'm going to do, here's how I'm going to make a difference. It's like you're pandering to the crowd that you already have their votes secured, and there's no way that you're going to lose those people to Trump. Like, so instead of maybe going after the voters who you could potentially still flip, if there are any, you just, like, solidified your base. Like, it's insecure.
Yeah, which
it's
does nothing for you.
No.
Yep. I agree. Well,
But how many undecided voters are there in America? Like,
yeah,
who actually doesn't know? It's not, am I going to vote for Biden or am I going to vote for Trump? Is it, am I going to vote or am I not going to vote?
Hey, J. Rick, you should take a look at the Kalinsky retweet I just did. It's pretty good. Oh, is he? Shit.
Trevor, have you read any of the Biden-Harris campaign page yet?
A bit.
There's some stuff I agree with on there, and I think it's more Joe Biden stuff than Harris stuff. But, like, there's some stuff that's like, okay, like, that's a good point, or that's common sense. There's also some stuff that I'm like, that's a good idea, but if you make that a law, then you're going to definitely give police reasons to get obtain warrants more easily. Like,
you're gonna have to write down some reasons.
Okay, I mean, some of it was the push on community colleges, just for an example, like, was huge. Now, the things that I don't agree with is they want to make community college free, but the fact saying instead of going to a 4-year university, go to a 2-year college and enter the work, or a trade school and enter the workforce. Also, some gun safety stuff, like I said in the group chat, like, when it comes to, like, adults being held responsible for, like, providing minors, like, if your kid shoots somebody, you gave the kid the gun, you obviously should have some legal responsibility to it, I believe.
That's not the way that was worded, though, with their website. It was that if you had a gun that was even accessible to a child, so being that...
that's not how I read it. It was so simple that I think that it could go either way, to be honest with you.
Well, that was just what a lawyer interpreted as.
That could be.
It was going to be way too vague, that you could potentially set somebody up to be really fucked if they just so happened to have guns in their house and there was a child nearby. All of a sudden there could be the Biden Gestapo coming in and taking your guns away.
Yeah. And like I said, there's also the one I pointed out in the group chat was, what was it? Something about, like, there's a way, I can't remember what exactly it was. I'll have to look it up and bring it to you guys, but it's like, that's an easy way for a cop to obtain a warrant just to get into your house and seize your firearms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, man. I think I'm going to call it a night, Gary.
Yeah, same here. Good talking to you boys.
Yeah,
I will. We have 5 people signed up for the mock election now, so I'll just do 10 states each, send it to them, and try and go from there. We can plan around either the first or the second for it.
Cool.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good, dude.
Sounds good, boys.
Right.
Bye.
Later.
Take it easy.